government are going about doing it is simply wrong.
I call the honourable member Todd McLeod.
Mr. Speaker, more effective, more efficient, streamlined, more focused, more professional public service is something that the National Party campaigned on in 2008 when we were elected to government, and it's something we campaigned on again in 2011 when we were re-elected to government. And I want to say to the Minister, Jonathan Coleman, that I think this is a very important piece of legislation that continues the job we started in 2008 when we were elected by New Zealanders to bring reform to the public sector and to focus on public finances. So I fully support this legislation, the State Sector and Public Finance Reform Bill. And Mr. Speaker, I want to quote something from the statement put out by the Minister, Jonathan Coleman, when this bill was introduced to Parliament a short time ago. He said, "This is an omnibus bill which amends the State Sector, Public Finance and Crown Entities Act to provide the legislative grunt to deliver better public services." Now, I say to members opposite and from the Labour Party that I accept that we will always have differences in some of these areas. But I would suggest to them that by supporting this legislation to Select Committee, they're saying to New Zealanders they are willing to consider changes, and indeed by not supporting it to Select Committee, they're saying that they reject all of that legislation. It's interesting, Mr. Speaker, that we say, well, it is, because if you say we support a few things but we're not going to vote for it, if finally, when we look back and history decides what your position was on this, was that you were against it. So the last speaker in this debate has said that we should talk about it more, we should debate it more, but by saying, Mr. Speaker, that a party in this House just opposes it outright, it suggests to the New Zealand public that they don't want change to the public sector, and they don't think that our public finances need reforming, or if they do, only on their terms. They're not willing to join us and to talk about it. And there will be other parties in this debate that I'm sure that will say, as we heard from the Green Party in the last piece of legislation that makes important changes to reduce cost on New Zealand SMEs, that they will support it to committee stage but won't commit any further than that because they think the committee needs to do some work. I say, and I implore the opposition party, the Labour Party, to actually vote for this bill, come to committee, have a fair hearing, hear from New Zealanders, bring their thoughts to that committee, let's see where we can reach agreement, and at that stage, if they're still unhappy and they say that they can't support enough of it, well, they then will be able to come out and say, at least we gave it a fair shot, Mr. Speaker. But indeed, as I said earlier, by not supporting this to committee, they're actually saying to New Zealanders that, they think that change is not needed. And I just want to make one point before I touch on one issue in the bill I think is important before we move on. Under the last 5 years of the Labour government, the public sector grew by 30%. Now, I accept we were in quite different times then. The country's finances looked very different and there were surpluses. But a 30% increase in the public sector without the same increase in productivity in the public sector is not something that should be done even in the best of economic times, let alone the economic times that we're forced as a country and much of the world is forced to go through. I also want to note, Mr. Speaker, that the Labour opposition, since we came to government, has opposed every effort on behalf of the national government to improve quality and efficiency in the public service. Now, that doesn't suggest to me that they do want change. It suggests to me that there's an old doctrine somewhere that says that this isn't the type of change they want and it's not a priority for them. I hope this doesn't mean that sometime in the future, when we have a change of government, Labour Party, Green Party together, that again we're going to see a ramping up of the size in the cost of government. Because 2 elections in a row, Mr. Speaker, New Zealanders have voted for change. They've voted for things to be streamlined. They've asked for a more effective, a more efficient, a more focused and professional public service. And not so long ago, in fact, it might have just been last week or the beginning of this week, a survey has come out that shows New Zealanders' thoughts on the way that the public sector is working, and they're showing some of the greatest confidence confidence in almost every area than at any time before. And I think that's a vote of confidence in what the government's doing, getting on with the things that are important and that New Zealanders have voted on. I want to make one point here, Mr Speaker, before I finish, because I'm keen for this bill to get to the Finance and Expenditure Committee. Very much in two parts that we're going to change the Public Finance Act, improve financial flexibility to support innovation and different ways of working with government. The opposition should be supporting that. More information, improving financial flexibility to support innovation. And then, as far as the changes to the Crown Entities Act, support sector-wide leadership by strengthening and aligning of Crown entities. There's a great deal to be done around leadership. We need much more innovation. I look forward to this debate in the Finance and Expenditure Committee, Mr Speaker. And again, I implore members opposite to support it. Come and have the discussion. They decide to cast it out afterwards if we can't reach agreement, but don't just say today, it's all over, it's not worth it. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Speaker, this is a serious piece of legislation.